Welcome to another Pixlr tutorial, and this tutorial is going to look at the drawing tool. So I've created a new image. I'm going to look at the different types of shapes that you can draw with the drawing tool. So when you select it, it gives you a toolbar and various shapes can be used. So there's a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, ellipse tool and a line tool. And then you have different blending modes and borders for the shapes and the colour for the shape. The colour in the fill shape is going to define what goes inside the shape. So if I wanted a blue ellipse, that's going to fill it with blue. If I wanted a blue ellipse with a black border, then I need to change the colour down here to black. When I draw the next shape, it will be a blue ellipse with a black border. The border size is only 1, so you can increase that size. I've made it 10, drew it again. You've got a much bigger border within the shape. Once you've drawn the shape, you can't move it using the move tool. I can't move that. The only way I'm going to be able to move them around is if each shape is its own layer. So if I do that again and create the base shape, so select the drawing tool. This time select a rectangle with a different colour, so a red one, and a black border, about a size 7, and draw that. I can't move it, so really I should have positioned that in a better way. If I wanted to put something else on that page, another shape, then I need to add a new layer. So a different one, so an ellipse, which is blue, and with a white border, can be drawn anywhere on that canvas. I'll draw it here. Then if I want to move it, I can now move that shape around because it's on the next layer. So you need to remember that every time you add a new shape or add some text. So if I wanted to put some text into this blue ellipse, then I'll do that on a new layer as well. Start renaming the layers, text, pick the text tool and position it inside that ellipse. Pick a font and a size and a colour in white and then just type that in. It's a bit big because it's not fitting in there, so we make it smaller. Okay, and now the move tool will be able to move that text because it's on its own layer. So you can build up some fairly sophisticated shapes just by using different layers. So let's clear that, create a new image, and have another close-up look at what are the other options you can do. So you can do a line, so if I select the drawing tool and the line and the size, if it's at 49 at the moment, is going to draw a big line, except it's in white. So it takes on that colour from that palette. So I'll draw it again. It will be a blue line. If I want to make that a bit lighter, then you can change the opacity. So it's not as bright. The same can be done with all the shapes. You can change the opacity of different shapes. So here's a black shape with a blue border at 50% opacity and the same shape at 100% opacity. The blending modes, so let's just remove some of these and draw another box. This is the normal box. 100% opacity, and it's a rounded rectangle, and that's with the normal blending mode. So you can go through and select some of these to see what they do. This is the hard light blending mode. Changes the blue, but leaves the black. Invert. Changes everything. Lighten. Nothing there at all. Multiply. subtract, changes things again. So you can experiment with blending modes as well. If we open an image from the computer, and this one is would be good as some sort of a title slide, for example, and it would be then good to put some sort of border on here if you wanted to add some text to introduce a video. So selecting the colour that you want, maybe white because you want it to stand out against the brown. So white for the fill shape. For the border, let's look at selecting something with the colour picker tool. So something from that brown. The border size. Select the blend mode back to normal. Draw the rectangle. And remember, once you've drawn it, there's no way you can adjust that. Even if it was on its own layer, you can't move the edges in. And if you wanted to put some text on that, then do a new layer before the text goes in. Because that can be adjusted with the Move tool. So it's useful for using text, borders, shapes to emphasize some of your images. Now you could also use a shape as a picture frame. If I open an image from the computer, child gardening, and what I want to do is create a rectangle shape around that picture to use as a border, and then perhaps another rectangle a little bit smaller so it gives the picture some emphasis. So to do that, I just want to take note of the dimensions of that picture, 650 times 366, and actually create a new image which is slightly bigger than that. So 750, 466, which gives us a bit of room to play with. And then close that picture and open images layer, and now open that photograph. Now I could do some editing with that photograph and blur the background, put a filter in, do whatever I wanted to, but for the purpose of this tutorial we're just going to look at putting a frame around it. And so we need to do a new layer, and we'll call that shape 1. And I want a rectangle that is black, and select the color, and about size 7, normal opacity, and I'm going to draw that rectangle just a bit bigger than the picture. Now to make that visible, we simply just move the layers around so that layer 1 is above the black shape. Now do a new layer, we'll call that one shape 2, and this time I want a white rectangle. The border not as large, so maybe 4, and selecting the rectangle, draw another shape. And it would take some experimenting to get the dimensions of these shapes right. And I don't need to move the white layer because it's already in the right position. If I moved it above there, you wouldn't see it because now shape 1 is the top layer, and layer 1, the picture, is sitting underneath it. So layers are useful in that you can move them around to get different effects. Shape 2 over shape 1 makes very little difference as long as the top layer is the picture. And then I would, because there's a bit of room outside of it, then I would crop that. So this is the only bit that we need. So draw a selection around that, and crop it, and save that picture. As a JPEG, 80% is probably okay for the quality that you want. Save to desktop, and have a look at that picture. this is the picture that we end up with. So if I've cropped it right, and so I still haven't cropped it particularly effectively because I've got a little bit of white sitting there. But if you can get some very good effects if you just play around with it. That's all for this video.